Hi everybody and welcome to my webinar tonight on 10 ways to prevent bullying for your child. My name's Debbie Rossi. There's a few new names on the call tonight, which is great, and a couple of regulars as well, which is also great. So welcome everybody. If any of you have never actually attended a webinar before, you'll see a spot where you can actually write any questions in the little poll on the right-hand side of your screen. Feel free to put any questions in there, and I tend to sort of answer questions as I go through slides or as I have a bit of a break in my talking as well. So just hold on, I will get to your questions, but I tend to just sort of answer them as I'm going through. So if you want to put your hand up at all, you can also put your hand up. But let me know if you've got any questions at all as I'm going through, and I'm more than happy to answer them. So I'm assuming that everyone can actually see my screen and hear me okay. I know there's still a couple more people to come on the call, but we'll get started anyway because it's 8 o'clock. But if you can't hear me, then let me know because the webinar is actually going ahead now. So we'll make a start. So this is about me. So my name is Debbie Rossi. I'm a kinesiologist. Now, a lot of you may not even know what a kinesiologist is. So a kinesiology is basically a natural health. It's a natural healing that we use to really understand and determine the different emotional things that are going on within our lives at that point in time. It's a lot about a physical component, a physical element of something going wrong in our body. It actually has an emotional component as well to it. So it's about understanding what that emotional component is to the physical ailment that's going on. So then you can then ultimately fix the problem from the root cause, from the emotional cause, why it started. So I got into kinesiology a few years ago now, 7 years ago, when my second daughter was actually suffering from headaches. And she would have migraines. So it would sort of start from a slight headache and slowly get progressively worse to being, having more Panadol, more Nurofen, and then to the point where she would actually be violently ill with her headaches. And this went on for many years. And I tried lots of different people. I didn't want to do the traditional medicine because I didn't want to put her through tests until I had exhausted all my options. And someone suggested that I go see a kinesiologist. And I went along to see a kinesiologist. Her name was Jenny Burns. And in one session, she determined that it was dairy that was causing these headaches. And I mean, my children used to have dairy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Any sort of time when I could, they would be having dairy because I thought that that's what they needed for their bones. And they do need it. But unfortunately, because of her bit of an intolerance to it, it was then causing her to have headaches and to be moody and to feel sluggish as well. So I took her off dairy and her headache stopped within about 2-3 weeks. And since then, she only actually has a headache when she actually has too much dairy, if she might go to a party and have ice cream cake or, honey joys with butter in them or whatever it may be. So she's actually really good now. So it was from kinesiology. And when I went to that session, I then needed to learn everything about it so I could then help my other children. And then I sort of went on a bit of a journey to help myself as well, which I'll get into in a moment. But it's a very powerful thing, and it's understanding. It's a lot based on the Chinese meridians as well, Chinese traditional medicine. So we do use a lot of pressure points around the body to release the emotions at a deeper level as well, which is really important when we're releasing them. And because kinesiology is so emotional, I have studied counseling, and this has really helped my practice as well because it's really helped my clients understand where the emotion started and what was the first trigger of it in their life. They may have been quite young when they first experienced anxieties. So it's looking to see that original cause of the anxiety and helping them to deal it from then, because ultimately what we do in our lives is we set up these belief patterns and these thought patterns of different things that happen in our lives to keep us safe. So we set these up when we're quite young, but we don't actually realize that then these beliefs and these thoughts run over and over and again in our minds, in our subconscious minds, and then they then dictate all of our decisions and all of our choices and all of our thoughts in the current life. So it's really dealing with the original cause of the problems, and that's why counselling works very well with kinesiology. And again, using muscle testing to understand what those emotions are and when that original point was. I have also studied Brain Gym and Leap. These are both learning enhancement parts of kinesiology. Brain Gym is more the exercise part of kinesiology, so it's actually doing physical exercises to get our brains working clearer, calmer, and more effectively. So it's actually really good, and it's used a lot in classrooms. I've done it in my kids' classrooms. It's really good in the classrooms because it actually, it's a bit of a break for the kids. They get up, they do some exercises, they get the blood flowing, they get moving, they wake up the brain, and then they can sit back down and do some work, which is really, really beneficial. And the LEAP, which is the Learning Enhancement Acupuncture Program, is more about, it's not as an involved process. It's still quite a beneficial part of the learning enhancement, but it's more that the person will be lying down on my table and I'll be using different pressure points and acupuncture points around the body to then enhance the brain function and getting it to work more effectively. So they both work very well, and I do find that they work very well in conjunction with one another. I am also the author of my book called Beyond the Schoolyard. Now, Beyond the Schoolyard is basically, it's about my journey. I was bullied as a teenager throughout high school, which is why I'm so passionate about bullying. And I then brought those feelings of low self-worth and low self-esteem into my adult life. So I had almost set up this belief of myself. Well, I had set up this belief of myself that, people didn't like me, or that I wasn't likable and I wasn't worthy of people's friendships. So for me, it was about understanding about what happened with the bullying and dealing with it again at that root cause of when the bullying happened in my present life, obviously, and changing the way I perceived it, and then changing the way I actually interpreted it now in my current life, because ultimately it's our present day emotions that keep our past alive. So it was dealing with the present emotions of the bullying experience and allowing me to move forward. And especially being a mum as well, when you become a mother, it's almost like all of your issues become enhanced because there's no downtime, there's no time away from them. It's always constant, and you need to be, happy and on your best behavior almost all of the time. Whereas before you might have come home and fallen in a heap. You can't do that anymore. So it's that constant thing, and that pressure as well of growing children who are confident and happy as well. And for me, I couldn't do that because I wasn't confident myself. So it was really dealing with my own issues to then be able to move forward and raise confident children by modeling to them what a confident person does. So that's my book called Beyond the Schoolyard, and that's actually been endorsed by Bully Zero Foundation Australia. So that's a not-for-profit organisation in Australia who helps stamp out bullying, and they've endorsed my book. So I do different talks with them at different schools and different organisations around bullying, and specifically around helping mums get themselves in a better headspace so then they can then be there to help their children. So I do have 4 children. My oldest is 12, almost 13, and I've got an 11-year-old. So I've got two daughters. So my oldest is a daughter, Olivia, and then I've got Sophia. Then I've got a little boy called Emidio, and he's 9, and I've got Karina, my little one, who is just turned 7. She turned 7 on Thursday. So I have 4 children, and I also do run my kinesiology practice as well. So things are busy, but it's just life, and I love it. I wouldn't change a single thing about it. So this is my book, Beyond the Schoolyard. So it's End the Bullying Forever. I talk a little bit throughout things that are in the book as well today, and also at the end of the session, you'll have the opportunity to purchase a book, and I'll also be giving you a free gift as well around 10 ways to prevent bullying for your child. So, but that is my book. So the benefits of tonight's webinar is the powerful techniques to address bullying for your child. Empower yourself to overcome your past and to become more confident and self-assured in the present moment. And learn essential tips to grow confident and happy children, because ultimately that's what it's all about. It's all about, we as mothers, we have this united sense of wanting to grow confident and happy children. Okay, so these are my 10 ways to prevent bullying for your child. And what I'll do, because this is quite a slide heavy webinar, normally I don't do them with as many slides, but because there was so much information, I just put them all down on slides. So this first slide is a bit of a snapshot of all the different 10 ways, and then I'll go into detail on each of the points as well. So bear with me, because as I said, it is quite slide heavy. I try not to put too much information on the slides because I don't want to overwhelm everybody. So I will be doing a lot of the talking, and again, feel free to shoot me any questions as you're going along. And thank you, Michelle. I'm glad that you can hear me all okay. Thank you. Okay, so number one way to prevent bullying for your child is deal with your personal issues. So that's as a mother or even as a father as well, dealing with your personal issues. Creating empathy is really important for children. Communication, teaching them how to communicate, because it's something that we need to learn. It's a learnt skill. Resilience. Resilience is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot with bullying, but it's such an important part of it. It's encouraging them to be resilient and being able to bounce back from different things that are going on. Attention. It's really important for that one-on-one time with your children, the one-on-one attention. Accept your child for who they are, being accepting. Do not label your children, which is really important as well. Discipline your child with love. Teaching your child how to be social, and encouraging your child to be independent. Okay, so we'll get into the first one, which is deal with your personal issues. So I am a huge believer, and I talk about a lot of this in my clinic and also in the workshops and the talks that I run. Happy mum equals happy kids. You always know when you're feeling like things are out of control, when you feel like when you're overwhelmed yourself or stressed or anxious about something that's going on, then you can always be guaranteed that the kids will be mucking up, and they'll be pushing the boundaries even further, or they'll be not doing what you're asking them to do. It's almost like Murphy's Law. That's what, when you're cranky, then your children around you will also be upset and cranky as well. Because I believe that as a mother, we have the ability to set the emotional tone of a household. So we have the ability to set that tone, and then our children will respond in that way. It's almost like, even if you don't have children and you're on the call, it's even if you're around a friend who's anxious and stressed and worried about something, you almost pick up on those energies of that person, that feeling of anxiousness and stress. So it's the same when you're a mother and with your children. Our children pick up on those energies and those stresses that we're trying really hard not to show them, or whether we are showing them, they do pick up on it. So it's really important that we start to look after ourselves and we start to deal with our own personal issues, so then we can in turn be there for our children and help them and model them. Because ultimately our children actually learn, I think the stats about 80 or 85% of what they learn through what we model them, not from what we actually tell them to do. So do this or do that, don't do this, don't do that. They don't learn from that. They learn from what we model them, and that's a 24-hour thing. They're learning from us constantly all the time. So when we are able to deal with our own personal issues, and for me it was around the bullying, like I said earlier, I didn't know how to be confident. I was always that very quiet person sitting there, and I would never go and, talk to other people, or I'd always sit there and wait for people to come to me. I was never self-assured in what I was doing. I always felt like I wasn't doing it right, or people didn't like me, and it was always, other people's faults around me. It was always, if only she had have included me more, or if only she didn't look at me that way. It was always different things like that. It was always the blame, and it was always that low self-confidence and that low self-worth that was fueling my behaviors. And how could I teach my children to be confident and to feel worthy and to love themselves if I, as their mother, wasn't doing that? I wasn't talking to people. I wasn't making eye contact with people. I was unhappy, and I would often come home and feel miserable after I'd been out socially, or, and that's not the sort of role model or the example that you want to set your children. So it's about dealing with yourself. And for me, I've been able to deal with my issues. And I mean, they still do come up because I mean, that's life. As I'm pushed to my limits or pushed to my boundaries or keep moving through life, my past issues still do arise. But I'm now in a better headspace that I can actually deal with them. And ultimately then that flows on to my children because I'm in a happier place and I'm in a more confident place. So they're learning that example now. They're not learning that, person who stands in the corner and doesn't talk to anyone and gets really embarrassed if somebody does actually, pay them attention. So it's about be the person that you want your children to be by dealing with your own personal issues. I think this is the really, really important one. I mean, it's huge. We all have our own issues and we all have our own baggage, and that's okay. But it's about how we deal with it and then ultimately how we present ourselves to the world and to our children as well. And looking within before you go out. So this is one of the really big things. And again, it's one of the big things that I tell my clients. You need to understand what the emotional component of things that are going on within you that are affecting the outside world. So for me, it wasn't that so-and-so wasn't talking to me or that so-and-so looked at me funny. It was within me. It was because I felt like I couldn't be liked by anybody because throughout high school, no one really liked me. I didn't have friends. I didn't know how to be somebody's friend. So that was within me. It had nothing to do with the fact of what so and so was doing or what this person was saying. It had nothing to do with that. What it actually had to do with was how I was feeling on the inside. Because now when I go out, I'm in the same situations, I've got the same people around me, but those things don't bother me because I'm feeling more confident and I'm feeling more worthy of who I am. So it's all about looking within and understanding the emotional things that are going on inside us and inside our heads, our thoughts and our beliefs that are then changing our perspective of what's actually going on the outside. Because ultimately what we do, I mean, we change reality to suit our perception and to suit our thoughts and our beliefs in our head. One situation can be one thing and two people will see it in totally different ways. And it's because of their internal talk and their internal thoughts and beliefs of themselves and of the world that then taint the actual factual realistic thing that actually happened. So it's about really looking within before you go out and looking within to make the changes within, not relying on people on the outside to make those changes, which is really huge to get your head around, but it's one of the most important steps I find. There's a couple more people who've just jumped on the line, so welcome. Any questions, or if you can't hear me, then just pop a question in the question box and I'll get to it as we're going through. So welcome. So the next one is around creating empathy. Okay, so this is around model and teaching your children to be empathetic, which is, I mean, these days in our world, we are very technologically based. It's a very fast-paced environment where our children actually spend a lot of time on iPads and iPods and iPhones and mini iPads and Xboxes and PlayStations and TVs and, laptops and computers, and I can't think of them all, but there's, many different technological things that our children actually use. And they use them very well from a very young age. I mean, I know my daughter, she was very young when she learned how to slide and put in my passcode on my iPhone. So, and unfortunately, it's a fabulous thing that, we do have so much technology around us, but unfortunately, the downside to that is that there's no personal connection and there's no, let's play a game or let's make up a game. Let's use our imagination and things like that, which really creates another boundary around teaching our children how to be empathetic and what other people are feeling around us. Because often, as children get older and they start using Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and all those other different things, what actually happens is, you can write something one way and the way the other person interprets it can be totally different because there's no real feeling in the words because they're just written words. So it's really being mindful of this. I think this is really important in this day and age, that we are very mindful of teaching our children about how to be empathetic towards others and what other people may be feeling, especially around the whole cyberbullying area that there is so prevalent now, and unfortunately it has caused many teenagers to suicide. I know Bully Zero, the not-for-profit organisation I'm with, who have endorsed my book for those who've just come on the line, that was set up originally by a man whose teenage son was actually cyberbullied and went off and then committed suicide. So it is such a huge part of our lives and of what's going on, but we really need to be mindful that technology, there's no emotion, there's no imagination in it, and we need to find different ways of modeling that and teaching our children that. And I think it's also important to, as we're modeling this to our children, that to allow them to feel like it's okay to feel whatever they're feeling. It's okay if they're feeling a little bit anxious. I might be anxious too about something. Starting school can be quite anxious, and that's okay. It's okay if they feel anxious, because it means that it's important to them and that they're wanting to succeed, or nerves wanting to achieve in whatever they're achieving. But it's about getting them to understand their emotions, so then they can see those emotions in other children and other people around them as well. And it's also around, how do you recognize that they are, how do you recognize emotions that are being experienced by people around them? So it's about bringing it back to basics and almost verbalizing what you're experiencing and what you're noticing in other people. I know my daughter, my oldest daughter started high school this year. And she said to me, "Oh, this little girl keeps saying that her teachers hate her, and that this girl hates her and that girl hates her. She's always talking about people hating her, And I said to her, well, I'm trying to explain to her that, obviously she's saying those things because she's feeling unhappy within herself, and she's feeling like very low self-worth and low self-esteem, that she's seeing these, like I did, seeing these faces or seeing these different things that people may be doing as a general thing. I mean, teachers, maybe talking to the general class, but she's interpreting it in a different way because she's already feeling quite low inside. So it's about using examples that are going on in their life and actually verbalizing it to them, so then you can teach them that way, because often children don't actually realize what's going on. So you need to actually verbalize it to them and make it more simplistic for them to understand. And it's also about being understanding, empathetic towards your children for what they are going through. Again, as I keep saying, it's role modeling to our children. So when we're empathetic to our children and caring and compassionate and understanding about what's going on, then they can then model that to children around them as well, rather than being in that, their own little bubble of where they're the most important thing. So it's really important about the role modeling, and again, getting ourselves right and in a happy place and a confident place that we can then do that for our children. Yes, Michelle, it's really, really important, to acknowledge a child's emotion of what they're feeling. No emotion is wrong, whether it be anger or anxiety or sadness or disappointment. Any emotion is a good emotion. None of them are bad. They just are, and it's about explaining that to children as well. Yep, definitely. Okay, so communication. So keeping lines of communication open with children. I think this is really important. So it's allowing our children to be comfortable in talking to us about the big stuff, especially as they're getting older as well. When we talk to children about the little stuff and the unimportant things, then they're more likely to talk to us about the more important things. And I think that's really something to be mindful of when you're talking to children. When you pick them up from school, start chitter-chattering about your day. Tell them about what you did, even though you didn't really do anything, but just talk about it. Because when you're talking to them about it, then they can see that that's that standard and that's that role modeling that you're doing, that we talk about our days and we talk about different things that are going on in our lives. So then when bigger issues come up, then they're more comfortable with talking to you. It's really important that we keep the lines of communication open, especially again in this whole cyber world, where lots of things happen online, and even when children come home, things, they're still talking to their friends on on the internet and on Facebook in their bedrooms or in the, even next to you. So it's about letting them be comfortable in talking about all things, big and small. And I think it's really important around communication because, again, communication is a learnt skill. Often sometimes we actually forget that you need to learn how to communicate, and you do need to learn how to argue as well, because when anger kicks in, it shuts off our logical thinking. So it's about being aware and, especially as children become a little bit older as well. I mean, and even with younger children when, with the tantrums and things like that. But I know, at the moment with my daughter who's almost 13, the whole answering back and the underbreath comments and things like that have really kicked in. So it's about, modeling to her the way I want her to respond to me. There are some, and don't get me wrong, there are times when I am feeling a little bit more vulnerable and emotional, and I will just answer her back almost in the same way that I'm talking to her, the way that she's talking to me, sorry. But it's about being the parent and being the adult in the argument and the conversation and almost manipulating it and changing it into the way to get her to change her behavior, because I can't change her. And the more I tell her to change, or the more I tell her not to do something, the more she does it, because that's her. That's the stage of her life, pushing boundaries and trying to find her own independence through pushing the boundaries with me and finding, somewhere where she does have strength in and, power in almost. And that's a typical teenager that, they are. So, when I was putting this slideshow together today, I had a perfect example of this on Saturday night with her in the car. We had just been to a piano at Stefford, and she was feeling, we were on our way home, but she was feeling quite exhausted because she got a little bit nervous before, and she was very overwhelmed with it. So she was quite sensitive and quite, narky at me. And when I was talking to her about her nerves and how nerves are good, because it shows that you want to try hard and she actually got quite upset, and she was saying, "Oh, I'm so frustrated at you. I just want you to stop. Just shut up, that sort of a thing, she was probably saying a lot more than that. But, and when she was saying these things, I was getting really angry myself because I was thinking, oh, here I am. I'm just trying to help her, and she doesn't want me to help her, and and what's going to happen next time, and, how am I going to deal with this? And she needs to nip it in the bud. And it's all of our internal thoughts, and we start to, blow the whole thing up even bigger than what it is based on our own, issues, as I said again, my own personal issues. So I just wanted to, I wanted to scream back at her like she was screaming at me, because that was my natural instinct to do. And that's what it is. When we're being screamed at, our natural instinct is to scream back, but it was about actually taking a moment and just calming down, because if I had have screamed back, it would have just exaggerated the whole situation, and then it would have made it worse, and we would have been screaming all the way home. 20-minute drive later, we would have not had any voices. But instead, I consciously made the choice as I'm sitting there fuming in the car. I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? So what I did was I calmed myself down, and I changed the topic totally. And I started talking about dinner. And I rambled on for quite a while, maybe 5 or so minutes, before she had calmed down, and then she started to participate in the conversation. So for about 5 minutes, I was just chatting about what we were going to have for dinner, how I was going out to a birthday party with my husband that night, and who was going to be there, and what we were going to be doing, and where we were going. I just rambled on until she was calmer and in a better headspace. And then she actually started talking to me like, in a respectful way. And that's what it was about. I gave her some space, but I was still also being respectful of myself and her by not screaming back at her. And that's how, becoming the adult when you're having a conversation or an argument, because then that's how they learn. Otherwise, it just ends up being that you're just screaming back at one another and you're sounding exactly the same. And that's not really, you're not getting anywhere really. And again, role modeling how to communicate effectively. So not only when you're talking with your children, talking with family members or friends as well. and modeling to them how to actually communicate and how to get what you want as well, and being able to ask for what you need. Resilience. Now, this is that big buzzword around bullying. So it's about talking to your children about how they can bounce back, how they can recover from difficult times or setbacks or challenges in their life. And it's also about putting things into perspective as well. I think this is a big thing about, because, in a child's world, if they're not invited to a birthday party, that can be the biggest thing, but it's about putting it into perspective and, giving them that other side, well, you know what? When we had your birthday party, we could only invite 10 children because that's all that we could afford. So we needed to limit it to 10. So you needed to pick 10 of your best friends. You can't invite the whole class. And that's okay, because there's going to be another birthday party next month or next week. There's always a different birthday party. But it's about putting it into perspective for them and allowing or teaching them to see the logic and the reason of what's actually happening, rather than getting caught up in the whole emotion and drama of it. Even tonight, I was taking my son to soccer training, and we needed to go to the doctor before I could take him, and the doctor was running late. So he was getting quite anxious because he doesn't like to be late, especially for soccer training, because that's his biggest passion. And he likes to be on time, and he likes to be there early and, ready for the coach to go and do the warm up and everything. So he was getting quite anxious and nervous, and he was crying in the car. He started crying because I'm going to be late. I'm going to be late. And I said to him, but what is it around you being late that you're worried about? Or when I walk in, people are going to look at me. And I said to him, but that's okay. Because when somebody else walks in late, you look at them and you just think, oh, so-and-so's late today. That's okay. Do you know what I mean? You're not, it's about showing him that it wasn't that everyone was staring at him and he wasn't the main focus. It was just that people just looked at him and just thought, oh, you're late, and didn't give it another thought. So it's about showing them that the bigger picture of things, and showing them more of the logic and the reason around things, rather than getting caught up in that emotion of, oh, I'm late, or I'm not invited to a party, or whatever it may be. And it's also important around the whole, it's okay. They're not alone. They're not alone in their thoughts. A lot of other people in the class are also feeling anxious about starting school, or anxious about going to the athletics day, and whether they're going to win, or who they're going to sit next to, or who they're going to talk to, or da da da. And it's okay. They're not alone. They're not the only one out there who's experiencing these feelings. A lot of other children in the class are. And when they actually stop and they look around and they can see that the children are, rather than being caught up in their own emotions and dramas of everything. The next one is one-on-one quality time. And this is really important. It's really important to have quality one-on-one time. It allows your child to feel valued and worthy, that you want to spend time with them, that you love spending time with them, and by helping your child to feel that in the home environment and with their mum and with their father as well, you're then allowing them to feel stronger within themselves. So when they go outside the home, they don't have to look for their peers of validation, because their peers aren't going to give them that validation, because, they're looking for it for themselves. It's not an environment where you can get it. But at home, you can give that to them by spending time with them and by encouraging them. So it's so important to spend time with them. And I know life is busy. I have 4 children, and it is crazy between, schooling and cheerleading and soccer and dancing and netball and drama and singing and piano and tutoring, and the list goes on, and plus working in between. So it is crazy. It is busy, yes. But like this quote says, I saw this quote and it's just perfect. It doesn't matter if you've got sticky floors or a messy kitchen or piles of laundry or washing or ironing or whatever it may be. What's important is that you've got happy kids and that you've spent time with your kids. The washing or the floors or the laundry, it'll get done. You'll get to it. But what you won't get to is you won't get to spend time with your kids. They grow and time goes by so quickly, and they do grow very quickly. So it's about putting it into perspective and understanding that and making that quality time, setting up times and setting up boundaries around that time as well, and making sure that you remove distractions when you're actually spending time with them. You don't have your phone in your hands and checking text messages or emails or Facebook or whatever it may be, but you're actually making eye contact with them, and actually making a point of doing it and saying it to them, this is our time. And obviously, I mean, in busy lives, we can't have one-on-one time with, I can't have one-on-one time with 4 children every day, but I do squeeze in little jokes and little bits and little perks here and there with each and every one of them. Something that they know that I really value in them, and I feed them on that, so then they can feel special and important in that, even though we're not sitting down together for a set amount of time. It may just be a little comment or a look or a little joke that we have together about that's special to us, between her and between us. I mean, for instance, with my second daughter, she loves to organize things, and she's amazing at what she does. She's very much like me. And on the weekend we had my youngest daughter's birthday party, so she was there helping me. She helped me, pass the parcel. She helped me organize the party games. She helped me organize the different foods and things like that, and help organize cleaning out my the rumpus room and things like that. So it was really, and the amount of times I praised her on it, oh, could not have done it without you. That's special because she's feeling good and feeling like she's valued in the home environment. She doesn't need to go outside to be valued because she is already. And again, remove distractions, get rid of all those distractions when you are spending time with them. Text messages can wait 5 or 10 minutes. They're not really important. And also get on their level. So making sure that you do something with them that they want to do, not about what you want to do. My oldest daughter is really into reading fictional novels at the moment. So it's about, we found a TV series called Once Upon a Time, and we're loving it. And it's a fictional sort of fairy tale character sort of show. I don't know if anyone's ever watched it, but it's really fun. So this is something that she loves. So this is our way to connect and our way to, have something in common and to do something and to have that connection, which is really, really important. Accept your child. And and I love this little quote. So stop trying to perfect your child, but keep trying to perfect your relationship with them. Because ultimately there is no perfect child, just as there is no perfect mother, there is no perfect friend, there is no perfect job, there is no perfect house. Perfect is an illusion, and it's something that people try and strive for and achieve, but it is just an illusion and it never actually comes to fruition. So it's about, you don't need to have a perfect child. So loving and accepting your child as they are right now. It's so important that we accept and show them this through, loving and supporting them and being proud of whoever they are and whatever they are and whatever they choose to be. My children are all very different, as I'm sure every family is the same. I don't believe that any 2 children are the same, even when they are from the same home environment and brought up the same way, because they have their own personalities. Excuse me. I mean, if you look at my 4 children, my oldest daughter tends to be a little bit more of a stressy and a little bit more anxious about things, whereas my second daughter, she calls herself crazy, and she is a bit crazy. She loves to be loud and noticed, and I mean, hats off to her. I always wish I could be a bit more like her. And my son is a very competitive, and he likes to win, and everything has to be a game, and how much he can, what score he gets, and he remembers all the stats of everything of whatever football game or school athletics carnival it is. Whereas my youngest daughter is very independent and a very gentle-natured little girl, and very soft, soft and caring. So they're all very different, and I can't expect them to be the same. And I can't expect my first daughter, who's a stressy and a little bit more quiet and reserved, to be loud and crazy like my second daughter. And I can't expect my second daughter, who's loud and crazy, to be like my first daughter, quiet and more reserved, because it just doesn't happen. It's not her. That's not who her character is. And I need to love and accept them for who they are, as they are right then, and yeah, and often, I mean, this is something quite hard to look at sometimes, but often what upsets us about our own children is often our own issue again. It's like when we're around friends and family and things like that, what upsets us about people around us is something that's within us. It's that emotional sting of something that's going on around us. It only affects us, and we only think about it, and we only reflect on it when it affects us emotionally inside. If it doesn't affect us emotionally inside, if we don't have that, if we're not missing that feeling inside, then it won't affect us. So if you look at my 4 children, I mean, sometimes, my second daughter being crazy and loud, sometimes that upsets me, or it might, yeah, upset me the way she'll be screaming at the top of her voice as she comes down to see me at school. I think, oh, Sophia, and that's because of my insecurities in me, that I've always liked to go unnoticed. I've always liked to sort of hide out in the corner and not really be noticed by people. Whereas her, she's loud and proud, and hats off to her, but sometimes it makes me feel uncomfortable. So it's about me looking at why I'm uncomfortable to then be able to fully accept and love her, and not judge her on the person that she is. And do not label our children. This is really important. You hear so many people labeling our children, oh, she's shy, or she's terrible, or she's naughty, or whatever it may be. I mean, I know my youngest daughter's teacher at school, she often calls her shy. She doesn't anymore, because I did call her up on it, but a couple of times, maybe 2 or 3 times, she did do it. And every time she would do it, my daughter would be next to me and hugging my leg, and she would actually hug in closer. It was almost like, when she would call her shy, she would go further and be shyer. Ultimately, I mean, when we call someone a name long enough, that's what they become, and that's what they start to believe in themselves. I'm shy because so and so said so, or I'm naughty because my mummy told me I'm naughty. You don't need to call your child naughty, or you don't need to call your child, shy or terrible or whatever it may be. It's just them. Children are children, and they are supposed to push the boundaries. Children are supposed to be cheeky and not listen, and answer back and do all those sorts of things. So we don't need to label them and put them into boxes. They don't need to be square boxes, our children. And allow your children to be who they want to be, not who you want them to be. And often, again, like I said earlier, often by calling your child a name, especially, when you're out in public, or even when you're at home as well, when you're, it's almost, your own issue, so you're almost labeling them so you can feel better within yourself. So you're giving them a name around other people, and you're saying, well, no, it's their fault because they're shy, or, but you're not actually looking at your own issues. But it's so important to allow your child to be who they want to be. And again, children are children. Children do childish things just like we used to do. Children do. Children won't put away their clothes. Children will leave their shoes on their floor and the school bags unpacked. And, children will scream and shout and, argue and punch one another and fight and everything else, because that's what children do. And that's okay. It's a learning process of, learning personal boundaries and learning how to behave and how to interact with others. And that's what we're here to teach them. And this is really important too, disciplining with love, coming from a place of love, not from a place of anger or frustration when you're disciplining. Because we all know, as I said earlier, when we're angry, our logic and our reason part of our brain actually shuts off. It's been proven that when we become angry, we can't think clearly. We get so caught up in the emotion and the drama of what's happened and what's going on that we can't see, black for white. We can't see what's real. because we're in that state, we're in that emotion of it. So it's about stepping away from that, just taking a moment, removing yourself, or even taking a moment. If something's going on, I mean, I'll often say to my children, I can't, I'll say to them, I can't respond to you right now. I can't answer that question. I can't say that to you now. I can't respond to you because I'm too angry. I'm too frustrated with what's going on. I need a moment. I need a moment to calm down. I need a moment to breathe. And it might even be that I go in the other room, or it might even be that I just stand there and I just am quiet for a little bit just to calm myself down, so then I can then respond in the way that I want to respond, not in a way of anger. Because when you're disciplining with anger, you're teaching your child to be angry. You're showing them how to be angry. You're not showing them how to deal with their anger effectively. And by verbalizing what you're doing as well, allows them to see what you're doing. So then next time when they're feeling angry or frustrated, they can also do that as well. They can take a breath, calm down, and step away from the emotion. So then they can then move forward in it. And again, anger is not a bad emotion. Any emotion that we have, there is no bad, there is no good emotion. They just are. We all feel angry from time to time. We all feel sad from time to time, but it's not a bad emotion. It's how we deal with it and how we, how we deal with it as to what actually is what the negative part of it is. Anger dealt with in an effective and in an effective way can be actually quite beneficial, because it can motivate you to do something. It can fuel you to get something done. Whereas anger dealt with in a non-effective way of screaming and shouting, can actually will cause you to feel more stressed and more anxious about what's going on. So you don't label these emotions as bad, but just rather than seeing them for what they are, and again, making sure that you do discipline with love. Often, how many times have we gone off the handle and then thought, oh no, why did I do that? Because you got caught up in the emotion of it. So moving away and stepping aside, which is really important. Yes, yeah. Yep, it is. It is really important, Jackie. And I know, I agree. Jackie's just said that sometimes she'll fly off the handle with her kids and then regret it the next day. And yeah, we all do that as mums, and that's okay. It's accepting that and to be okay with that we're not the perfect mother all the time, but the 99% of the time we're doing our best, and that one little percent of time we do fly off the handle. But to avoid doing that is to, just reminding ourselves, Jackie, just to take a breath and to remove ourselves from the situation before it gets to that point, which is really important. Teach your children how to be social. Model and teach your children to be social through our own social relationships, which is really important. Again, it's modeling to our children. Children learn from example. Whether we're talking with the way we talk or socialize with, children, or, in our own social groups with our own families and friends, they're standing there watching us, what we're doing. If we're at school pickup or kinder pickup and we're standing there by ourselves, not talking to anyone, then how can we expect our child to go into kindergarten and interact with other children when we ourselves don't talk to other people? So it's about modeling and teaching them. And I think it's also really important about teaching them to look after their family and friends as well, by you doing that yourself, by looking after them and being there and being available for family and friends. And the last one that I have here is encourage independence, because it's important that we grow independent children, and that they're able to do things for themselves, and they're able to feel confident in their ability to do things for themselves, because ultimately that will help them succeed in this world, by being able to do things for themselves and having a belief that they can do things. So putting our trust in our children is really important. Putting our trust in our children of what they can and what they can't do, and giving them a little bit, and allowing them to make mistakes. It's okay if they make a mistake along the way. It doesn't really matter, because we all make them. And the best thing about mistakes is that we actually learn from them, and we can grow and develop ourselves from mistakes. And I think even though we do want to wrap our children in cotton wool, we do need to allow them the space to fall and to fail, and for them to know and for them to have trust in the fact that we'll be there for them when they do fall or fail, and then have that opportunity to talk to them about what they could have done differently next time, or what they could do, or what you do differently. Children like to hear stories, so they tell them stories about yourself, of how you dealt with something. I mean, it may not even necessarily be 100% true, but giving them that example, so then they can then draw upon that for their own selves. And I think it's really important as our children are growing up as well, is that, I always call it the value punch, throwing in our values as we go along, wherever we can, and when we are allowing our children to have a little bit of independence, because we have been able to, over the many years, been able to throw in, our little value punches here and there of, things that are important, respecting people and being honest and being integral and being considerate and compassionate of people, and putting the importance of family, whatever values your family has. Saying these things to your children and throwing them in wherever you can, almost like, that punch of giving them that value in whatever you're talking about, and whatever you're, whatever may or may not be relevant. But so they're constantly hearing it, and they're constantly being aware of it. So then when they do go off on their own, they'll have those values, and they'll have those thoughts within them that then allow them to be more confident within themselves and the situation. And of course, encouraging our children to give things a go. You're never going to learn if you don't give things a go. And I like this quote as well that I found. It is not what you do for your children, but what you have taught them to do for themselves that will make them successful human beings. And that's so true. It's about what they can do for themselves, rather than relying on someone else to do things for them. So just capping off, the 10 ways to prevent bullying for your child. We talked about dealing with your personal issues, creating empathy, communication, resilience, attention, so that one-on-one time with your children, accepting your child for who they are, not labeling your children, disciplining your child with love rather than coming from a place of anger, and teaching your child how to be social, and encouraging your child to be independent as well, which is really important. So they're my most 10 important ways of preventing bullying with your child. And your opportunity today, End the Bullying Forever with me. I do see lots of clients around bullying, whether it be an adult dealing with their own personal bullying that they experienced as a child, or whether it be children actually experiencing it then and there. And also, I do want to point out here, it's also, even though it's just as important to look after the victim, it's also just as important to look after the bully as well, because they've also got a lot of internal and emotional issues that they need to deal with. It's not all about the victim, it's dealing with the bully as well, to help them get in a better headspace, so then they don't need to pull other people down to make themselves feel better. They don't need to fill themselves up by pulling, making fun of other people or making other people feel bad about themselves. So tonight, my book, Beyond the Schoolyard. So this is a little package that I put together for this webinar, and 30 minutes with me, face-to-face or via Skype. So this would be a kinesiology session. So it would be a session, using the muscle testing to understand the emotional component of what's going on, and figuring out where these emotions started from in our lives as well, really being able to deal with it from the root cause. Discover the answers to questions you've been asking yourself a long time through kinesiology muscle testing. Why aren't I confident? Or why do I not, have that belief in myself like somebody else might? Why? What's wrong with me? So really understanding the real reasons why. And uncover the gaps that will help you lead a higher quality life ultimately. And with every session that I do give homework for you to complete and for you to continue your journey at home. So it's really important to be able to do that. Have because ultimately change doesn't happen in a 30-minute or an hour session, whatever it may be. It's implementing those things in your everyday life, which is where you make the changes. So you can order a copy of my book at beyondtheschoolyard.com.au. And with this, so the cost is $19.95 plus $5 postage. And with this, you will receive your free 30-minute kinesiology session with me. And I'll contact you tomorrow for the session with some available times as well. So yeah, so go online and order the book. And then I will contact you tomorrow and organise a session. So with every purchase of the book tonight, I'm offering the free 30-minute session. But be quick, because I do limit the free sessions to 4 per week. So yeah, if you're wanting a time in the near future, go online and order one, or you can even put a message in saying that you're wanting one, and I'll put a time aside for you soon. But today, as a way of saying thank you as well, so for attending my webinar, I'll also email you through my tip sheet, which is called 10 Ways to Prevent Bullying for Your Child. So it's basically everything that I discussed tonight in a bit of a tip sheet sort of a format, sort of abbreviated for each section, but basically the same tips, but just a bit more of an abbreviated way, so you can actually refer to it from moving forward as well. So I'll email that through if I get onto that tonight. Otherwise, it'll be tomorrow. So I'd like to leave you with this poem, because I love this poem and I think it's so important. Because again, it's that whole modelling to our children. So I'll just read it through. And while I'm reading it through, if you've got any questions or any comments, or if you're wanting to order a book or allocate some time, for a session with me, then write that in the question box, and I'll answer you once I've finished reading this, because I think this is really important. And this is a poem called by Dorothy Law Nolte, and it's called Children Live What They Learn. So if a child lives with criticism, he learns to condemn. If a child lives with hostility, he learns to fight. If a child lives with fear, he learns to be apprehensive. If a child lives with pity, he learns to feel sorry for himself. If a child lives with jealousy, he learns what envy is. If a child lives with shame, he learns to feel guilty. If a child lives with encouragement, he learns to be confident. If a child lives with tolerance, he learns to be patient. If a child lives with praise, he learns to be appreciative. If a child lives with acceptance, he learns to love. If a child lives with approval, he learns to like himself. If a child lives with recognition, he learns that it is good to have a goal. If a child lives with sharing, he learns about generosity. If a child lives with honesty and fairness, he learns what truth and justice are. If a child lives with security, he learns to have faith in himself and in those about him. If a child lives with friendliness, he learns that the world is a nice place in which to live. If you live with serenity, your child will live with peace of mind, with what is your child living. So yeah, like I said, I love that poem and I think it's just so true. So there's just been a couple of comments that have come through. So I'm just going to have some water. Yes, Leonie. So go on and order my book online. And then once you order it online, I'll get an email notification that you've done that. And then I'll email you through some available times tonight or tomorrow for this week or next week. So yeah, so go online. So that's www.beyondtheschoolyard.com.au. Excellent. Yes, Michelle, I love that poem as well. I did put that up on my Facebook page. I don't know if you saw it recently. If you haven't already as well, guys, go across to my Facebook page. It's under Total Being Kinesiology, and like my page, because I do quite often post. And that there is a copy of that poem up on my Facebook page. So, but if you struggle to find it, again, just shoot me an email and let me know, and I can send you through this copy as well. But I love this poem. It's perfect in every way. Oh, yes. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you for listening. I'll stay online for a little bit longer if there's any more questions or anything. So if you've got any questions or comments, just make a little note in the box and I'll get to you. So I'll just stay online for a little bit longer. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Alessia. Thank you for listening. So I think that might be just about it because it looks like the questions have gone quiet for a little while. But I will send through a copy of my webinar as well. I'll send that through. Oh, excellent. Yeah. Thanks, Beck. Thank you. Yeah, I look forward to talking to you as well. Thank you. That'll be great. I'm glad that you could listen as well because that's really good for yes, for everything. So thanks, Beck. Thank you. But I will email out a copy of my webinar. So you can have that as well, so you can re-listen to it. And on my webpage, www.debbierossi.com.au, in the next week or so, I will actually put up a transcribed version of my webinar. So if you're wanting to actually, just go there and grab some quick information rather than having to listen to the whole thing again, it'll be there available for you as well. So jump on there and have a look as well. And as well, it's got lots of other information and blogs and things like that I do as well. But yeah, so I think that might almost be just about it. So if there's no more questions, I might call it a night. And thank you again, everybody, for listening. And I will send through that tip sheet and go online if you're wanting to order one of my books. And I look forward to hearing from you all soon, or helping you further along this journey of saying no to bullying. So thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.